I will ask a question.
Go
Now
on,
that
mate.
you are pretty much at rock bottom and financially it's a mess and the table does not lie, are we going to hear the words Manchester United are back again? And if so, what year is that going to be? Like real talk. I saw the other day someone say, I think it could take more than 10 years. Now, I understand where they're going because things look so bad now, but football can change very, very quickly. And you're supposed to have brought these guys in to do that. You're supposed to have brought them in to turn you around, right?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't think it would be this bad. I've got to be honest. I never ever had you anywhere near this position in the league. I might have had you in the top 8 and thought not quite sure whereabouts United will finish, but I imagine it will be around that. I never had you there. Are those words going to come back? I remember when Rio said it. Man, United are back. Sign the thing when he had Ollie. When are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
ever
yeah,
going to
yeah,
say
yeah,
that
yeah,
again?
yeah.
And how long is this going to take? Tell real talk because it's a mess, bro.
I look at it this way. One of the reasons I'm not also going fully in is because I don't, where I can, and look, I'm a human being like everybody else, and I make mistakes. We all perform hypocrisy at some point. None of us can say I've never done that. If Man United was sitting third right now because the Amrim appointment had clicked straight away, but we were still making these redundancies. If we were sitting third, playing well, oh, we could win this Europa. We really could win this FA Cup. Do I think 50, 60, 70% of the Man United fans angry at the austerity measure? Would they be as angry? My personal feeling is no. If we win the Premier League next year, a Man United fan's not going to go on the parade and go I'm not going on the parade because of that fucking soup situation. I'm not doing it. Because they took the £50 a week bonus away from the stewards, I ain't going on that parade. So the reason I say that is it's like I never condemned anyone from the Middle East owning a football club. And I understand the rationale people have behind it. I don't agree with it, but I understand the rationale. But the reason I never went along with it is, well, one day somebody from the Middle East could own Man United. Am I going to walk away and not be a fan? No. And I feel that if you're someone that's against Middle East investment in the Premier League, but then you continue to watch the Premier League like I do, work within it in one way, shape, or form, that's just absolutely ridiculous hypocrisy. The Qatar World Cup was a prime example. Everyone condemned it, but give me my money to go and be a commentator there, please. I don't want to behave like that. And the reason why I'll say I'm not a fan of the redundancies, I'll say I don't like every action that's being taken. But if this ends up working and we end up becoming a better football team, let me be just honest. Am I going to celebrate wins? Yes. Am I going to celebrate trophies? Yes. Am I going to sing with the greatest team in the world? Yes. So therefore, going in now on how they're starting this process off and building it by making by reducing jobs and everything else, I just feel about the level of condemnation it's getting. I don't then see how you can celebrate at the other end if it works. That feels to me really hypocritical. So I get, I'm not saying I'm celebrating redundancies. At the same time, I've heard people go, I don't recognize this club. This ain't the club I fell in love with. But if they start winning games, you'll fall in love with them again. So I just think be careful what you say, because I don't necessarily think everybody is going to see this through to fruition in terms of their anger at the club, because I think a lot of this is about the results. On Chelsea fans are protesting. Would they be protesting if they were still in the title race? I don't think so. I don't personally think so. So I don't know when we'll be
Probably
back.
not.
I don't have an answer.
I think you're going 20 years without a title. I think you're going 20 years without a title. You've got what, 7 years left or something like that.
8 years, yeah, 8 years.
8 years. Because here's the thing, right? I can't remember who I was listening to yesterday. I was listening to someone yesterday and they were saying that basically this squad obviously needs completely rebuilding. I think most people agree with that. Like, there's probably 3 or 4 players max that you'd keep, and even that might be a stretch. So you're talking a very big rebuild with a very big spend needed. However, when you've got your owner coming out saying stuff like, we are under pressure on PSR, hence why we're making all these cuts. Please let us know any ideas to grow the revenue, stuff like that. That doesn't give you confidence that you're going to be able to hit the transfer market big time. For example, my club has got plenty of PSR spent 20 million in the summer. We've got the second highest player trading sales out of any football club in the world, only second to Benfica. So that's why I have confidence in my club being able to go out and spend 300 million in the summer, because we've not spent that money in the summer and we've made the sales. You don't have that. And therefore, I think it's going to be at least at least a 4-year process to get your club back to the sort of even be anywhere near competing. And then you're down to 4 years left. And then you've got to hope and pray that the manager's correct. You might not have the right manager. Amorim might not be the right manager. Some of the signings might not work. And you've got to hope that City, Arsenal, Liverpool have all dropped off. So I'm going to put it out there. You know what I mean? There is a little bit of a gamble towards the back end of it. But I reckon 20 years. I reckon you're going to do 20 years.
It may go 20 years, mate. And for me, I don't want to sound like I have no standards because it will trigger certain people. But if we're in the title races and we're a good team, I'm satisfied because we have no God-given divine right to actually win them. For me, my biggest issue is we're not even in the conversation. We're not even in the races. You know, if in 3 years' time we start challenging, we came second, came third, 5 points off the top, but we picked up an FA Cup, we won a Europa League. If we're nearly winning the league but picking up other trophies, I don't think that's the end of the world. Because, as you say, you don't know how good and bad everybody else is at the same time. So you look at this City team that's coming to the end of its sort of dominance. The only reason Liverpool didn't win more leagues is because they were up against a superior outfit in that time period. As an example, doesn't make that Liverpool team bad. They were just up against a really good team. Liverpool now might be a side that don't accumulate as many points. Maybe don't have a bigger win percentage. Maybe they win more league titles in the next 5 years because the next City team isn't as good. So I think sometimes there is this element of, but you're the champions. So as long as we're up there competing, as long as we have an identity, I'm relatively relaxed because I feel that anyone that's good enough to compete for a league title is good enough to consistently win other trophies at the same time as a general rule. So listen, and we could go 20 years. I'm not sitting here thinking that's impossible. I've seen, the last time City won a trophy when they went 34 years. I bet the last time Newcastle won a trophy 60 years ago. I bet the last time Spurs won the league and Liverpool won the league in the 80s and the invincible year. I bet all those fan bases thought it will never be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years until we win again. So I won't sit here arrogantly and say that there's no way that happens. A few comments here I want to go to. First one says, Terry, we were literally hours away from going into administration. Hush up. This is also another... Listen, I know you were... you nearly went out of business at Liverpool. However, you didn't have £1 billion of debt for an owner to take over. So you were nearly in administration. The takeover was a much cheaper deal than it is now because the football landscape has changed to what it was 12 or so years ago. And there wasn't even FFP and PSR when that situation happened and the new takeover happened. So again, if there was no PSR rules right now, Ineos could pump more money in, maintain a certain amount of staff at the club and invest in the transfer window. So you can't remove the context of the financial situation. Terry, sell the club to a footballing man who cares about the club. Mohammed, I agree. But who's the man and has he put the money up? Who is he? Has he put the money up? Is he willing to pay the asking price? Because if he isn't, the Glazers are going to say no. They're just going to say no. So again, what you're suggesting is what I want, but it isn't realistic because nobody's there offering it. It's like saying, do you know what? Arsenal, go out in the summer, buy Mbappe. It's not plausible. The media, are they attacking or is it opinions or facts? So there's a combination. The media, I think, are a little bit duplicitous because some United fans don't care about this, but I do. I actually think we were bloated and we overemployed people. I think there were lots of... If Man United managed to maintain their income, if not increase it in the next 2 to 3 years with half the workforce, why would my question is, well, why were they even employed in the first place if they're not needed? That, for me, is a question that has to be asked. At the same time, when it comes to giving away free food as a point, it's not about whataboutism. Arsenal don't do it and Chelsea don't do it. But it's about understanding the landscape. Is it that we were behaving better than other clubs, but we no longer can afford to, and we're now behaving like everybody else? Or are we the outlier that's doing something wrong to its staff? Especially if rival clubs are going, you're scumbags to your staff, and it turns out none of you were doing it anyway. So we were just the last to pull it away. I feel like journalists should be providing that entire picture. And I always go back to a stat they put out once about Paul Pogba walking. 24 minutes a game he walks for. And we all were like, that's terrible. And I remember sitting there thinking, well, hang on, how's that compared to everybody else in midfield in the Prem? We don't know whether it's good or bad because we have no perspective or no context or perspective. So I think what journalists should be doing is providing us, the readers or listeners, not just with Man United's picture, but what the industry by and large looks like. That I think that gives us a better opportunity to either agree with it or condemn it, so we understand the industry a little bit more. And I think that's Dan, you said about understanding the finances. The problem is we only get half the education, because none of the football experts are explaining that because of PSR, they can't just pay the debts off and then continue spending. But yet, Man United fans, would pay the debts off, you're billionaires. If it was being said on Sky Sports and TNT Sports and the BBC and all these articles that they can't do that, maybe people would be a bit more understanding. And
why can't they do that?
So the reason they can't pay the debt off is a number of reasons. One, the Glazers aren't willing to give up more of the ownership by the debt being paid down. They want the money in their back pocket. Secondly, if Ineos went, okay, we'll pay it off anyway, we'll pay £1 billion off, but we won't gain any more ownership, which would be crazy. I wouldn't expect anybody to pump £1 billion into a club and not own more of it. It's £1 billion. But if they were to pump their own money in, so there's no limit to what an owner can pump into their own club. So Newcastle United's owner tomorrow could inject £400 billion into the club, employ 10,000 members of staff, employ everyone in Newcastle, give them a job. But in terms of spending more money in the transfer window, all of that is offset on your profit and loss accounts, because it's investment from the owner, which is maximum £90 million over any given 3-season period. So it's all offset. So you might make a profit of 400 billion because the owner's pumped it in, but all of that is taken away when it comes to the PSR assessment. So you can't just pump in whatever you want and spend it on this area of the club and then start spending more in the transfer window, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they minus that off. So, and I still want more information on that. But I've asked a number of these experts. I'm like, so how long does that last for? Is it for the term of the debt? Is it for a set period of time? Is it just a one-season situation? If it was just one season, then great, we'll pay it off. One season, we can't use it, but by the next year, we're fine. But nobody wants to have these conversations. And what I find concerning with the media is that, for me, is the more important conversation about what solutions can they put in, rather than just criticizing what they're doing. I want to know what else they can do. That way, it's like when you watch the news, if you're watching a really emotive political situation, it's terrible what they've decided to do. What I want to hear from the experts is, what are the alternative options? And sometimes you sit there listening, or it might be question time, could be the news, it could be a big report, and you're like, hang on, I don't understand it because I'm not an expert on politics or war. But why are we not being provided with alternative options? And maybe as the public, we could say, well, let's do that one. That sounds a lot better, more humane. And for me, that's what we need more of, is the experts or the people that have access telling us what else can be done to educate us. And I think that would really help personally. This here from the Red and Blues. It says, sorry for being late, lads. Just got out of the late lunch at Carrington. Today's menu was some Jaffa cakes and hobnobs. It was lovely.
I hope you paid for him, lad. You know what I mean? They were coming with an invoice.
I hope you did pay for him. Well, he's a PSG fan, so I'm sure they're flush with loads of money. They're grand. The problem the problems we have come from commercial signings, overspending, sacking managers. We haven't been a football club in a while. Even towards the end of Fergie, we wasn't a football club. Listen, I understand that, and I hear a lot of people also say, well, hang on, you can't be making people redundant and then wasting money on Ashworth. And I get that. But there's also something in business that, again, they should be educating fans on this. Cost to income ratio. A department that's responsible for bringing in £500 million a year should be and will be afforded more losses and mistakes than a department that makes no money or actually costs the organization $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year. There's every organization, whether you're a small business in a high street or whether you're a conglomerate, every individual departments will have a cost to income ratio. So there's more leniency in that. So I understand people's point of view, but again, I just don't think the right conversations are being had. But I understand why, because the media job is to wind everybody up, isn't it? And throw the cat amongst that pigeon. But yeah, it's not a great look. I don't like the redundancies. I am on a moral standing against them. But again, I keep asking, and no one yet in the comments, I haven't seen any. No one's given me a suggestion of what else we can do. So at the same time as everyone's condemning it, nobody seems to have any idea of other than find a billionaire. Good, go find one. Go find one who's willing to pay £2.5 billion over the asking price. I don't know if they exist, because the Qataris, I wanted them, but they weren't willing to pay the asking price. There's a reason for that. Let us